Hello everyone, it's TS Page and welcome back to another video. Today I want to go over the open beta client and Exalt as a whole, but more so than what I've seen and what I've experienced personally, I'd rather go over what I think it means for the future of the game, because everyone's already made videos on what they think, how the game feels, all that good jazz, so I want to talk a lot more about the future and what this means for the game going forward. So to start this off, I'd like to say I'm going to categorize this video in 3 different parts. There's going to be the first part, which is going to be the new approachability of the game for new players, the polish of the game, how it looks, how it feels, the overall vibe and look, aesthetic, and then 3, we've got long-term playability. Alright, so let's talk about approachability. Approachability, quite simply, so much better on Exalt. I remember opening the launcher for the first time and getting just a nice welcome screen with bright, vibrant colors and going, oh man, this is good. Like, I genuinely enjoyed just the title screen of RotMG Exalt. And not to mention, the game is a lot less laggy. The UI is so much nicer than it was now. It takes a little while to get used to if you've had it for a while, but for a new player, it's way nicer. And I have no doubt that there will be tons more players that'll enjoy this over what they would have had in Flash. Another important point I'd like to go over is how the game is going to be a lot more streamlined and professional as far as launcher and accessibility goes. When it comes to the game now, or at least in its current state, we have 5 different ways to access the game. You've got Chrome, Congregate, or any browser, Congregate, Flash, the Exalt client, or through Steam. But once the port is finished, and like the only thing we can play on is Exalt, we only have 2 ways to play the game. That's through Steam, a very reliable and very well known gaming platform where the game should be relatively accessible and easy to find for anyone trying to look for the game. Or, we've got the official launcher itself, released by the company, which feels very professional, well made, as I said earlier, and I'm looking forward to this, I gotta say. And another really important thing to note is that Deca in one of their previous Q&As, if you go back and look, I don't remember which one it was exactly. I couldn't find the exact screenshot that I'm looking for. If someone wants to link it in the comments, that'd be greatly appreciated. But they said they're launching a advertising campaign after Unity port is completed at some point. Now, I don't know if you've been in the servers recently, but we're already having trouble with servers getting full and crowded, and I've seen tons of new players already, or really low star, like old accounts that didn't play very much because they didn't find the game interesting, coming back to the game now for beta testing. Like, if they advertise this game with the approachability that I see that it has now, Deca's got to get ready to invest in some more servers. With that said, that is a real problem though. Other than the client itself crashing, there's not really a lot to complain about with the Exalt client other than server lag. Like, that's only because it's full. If they can invest in either better servers or more servers, then the game's going to be great. Taking a step forward, advertising, expanding their player base, and they'll get in turn more revenue in theory, and they will then be able to invest more time, effort, and money into expanding their game, and also hopefully expanding servers as the game becomes more popular. With that said, it kind of takes me directly into my next point, which is polish, which is the next step into getting a player to play for more than a few weeks, few months at a time, and then get them hopefully into the long-term player base. So when it comes to polish, I think what they did recently with the free character slot was extremely important for long-term playability of the game, especially for free-to-play accounts. The second character slot right now is basically a necessity, just to be completely honest. Having one character to farm up potions on, stuff like that, and one character that can just be the tank or the main character that you feed is extremely important to the game, and now a lot of people have that as an option. I'll expand a little bit more on that though in the long-term playability, which I think is a very key point. But let's talk a little bit more in depth about polish. Loading into the Nexus or into any other realm, dungeon, pet yard, vault, anything like that, you get this nice, very simple, but clean loading in animation that just really makes you feel like immersed into the game as soon as you join whatever it is you're joining. And if there's a ton of people, you see a bunch of those little beams. You've got all your feather warriors, your tricksters, mystics, whatever, just teleporting in around you, and it's just a really cool feel overall. It gives you that sense of community rather than just people appearing. Another important thing I want to talk about is the music itself. The music is fantastic for this rework, and they're not even done. I think the plan is to have every dungeon have its own unique soundtrack or own unique OST for it, including Nexus Vault, Pet Yard, and everything like that, which sounds fantastic. And I know a lot of people who've played a lot of classic games or games from their childhood. Music is really important. It builds that nostalgia. You can think back, you can relate, you get good memories swarming in whenever something plays. So for example, I'm going to play a tune right now, and I assume for most of you it'll bring back quite a few memories. Yeah, I really just hit you with that. But for those of you who don't know what that was one of the Minecraft original soundtracks that I'm sure got to quite a few people. And with that being said, I think that a lot of the Realm soundtracks have the ability to kind of fill that void. The old soundtrack, while not bad, was the same old repetitive thing on a very, very short loop. And Minecraft has tons of different OSTs that all kind of seamlessly fit into one, and Realm's new OST set, pack, whatever you'd like to call it, seems to be, quite honestly, like it can fill that void. If you're one of those players who have by default turned off sounds just because you don't like it or just tend not to play with sounds on in Realm of the Mad God, I encourage you, try and turn them on for a little while. See how it feels. And for a new player, if you can get past the ear blast that is the first couple seconds of the launcher opening, it's nice. It's really, really nice. And I think it adds a whole new element to the game that the game never had but so desperately needed. Many others have talked about it, and I'm just another one in line to do so. But to be completely honest, it's probably one of the best things Deca could have done. The last thing I want to talk about when it comes to polish is certainly subject to change, but quite important. It's the UI, the feel, and just the overall vibe of the game. Health bars being a potent part of the game is going to be really, really important. I think that's a great addition. The UI and the character select screen looks much more streamlined rather than it being a whole big shabacle to go through. I don't know if that's a real word, but you get what I mean. Everything loading in, joining the game is a lot more streamlined trading once the system is out, and certainly a lot better than it used to be. Alrighty, well with that being said, let's move on to the third and final section, which is long-term playability. So one of these I mentioned earlier, but the two most important things in my opinion for this game to be a really good long-term option is more than one character slot, and two, a good pet. Now, the pet is something that can be worked on over time, and it gives you a really long-term goal. I'm not saying you have to have a good pet in order to play the game. I think that having that pet as a long-term goal to feed, get fame for, play the game, just, in general level it up, it's a really good long-term goal that can keep people invested, at least to some extent. And then the second character slot I think is very essential for new players, especially because in order to get wealth in the game as a new player, it's really hard to just do PvE over and over and over with just one chest. It's not very practical whatsoever, so having more than one vault chest from the pack that was recently released and having more than one character slot from the pack that was recently released makes it so that newer players can easier gain wealth after they quickly learn the game or take time to learn the game, because they can have a character to farm pots on, store those pots in one of their chests and then feed those pots to their main character, which can then get maxed over time, giving them access to better and harder dungeons earlier, which in turn I think will make the game more enjoyable and more playable for the long-term future. This makes me bring up the topic of I really hope Deca makes it to where new accounts have a easy obtainable way to get a second character slot or a second vault chest, something like that. That way they have, a little bit more of a chance to play the game long term and actually, get somewhere with their characters, rather than just having one character die repetitively and barely being able to scratch the surface of the game, whereas a second character slot will open up a whole realm of opportunity. And of course, the last thing I want to talk about is, the loot and the death mechanic themselves. They're the reason the game is going to succeed long term if advertising goes well. It's not going to be for everyone, that's just a given, but the game itself builds itself for long-term playability. Doesn't matter how good your character is, it's just the same as another 8/8 at the best it can get, despite having, maybe slightly better gear, slightly more survivable, slightly more DPS based. At the same time, there's no way you can get the ultra broken character that's just completely invulnerable to dying. No character is god tier. No character is untouchable, despite how long it's lived. And that keeps the game interesting. The risk reward is a constant thrill, and there's so many different ways to push yourself and get better loot and get better at the game and make the game interesting for yourself. There's so much you can do. It's just it's got the long-term playability built into it, its core, its mechanics. So yeah, I think the game is going to do just fine with long-term playability. The last thing I want to talk about is Deca. They have really done what they said that they were going to do. When they purchased the game, I distinctly remember them saying, "Our goal is to breathe new life into old games," and that is exactly what they've done with Realm. Despite what anyone may say, they have done a fantastic job making this game playable again, making this game enjoyable again, and I am really glad to be a part of this community. And with that said, I think Deca has put this game in a place where it can succeed in the future, and I will debate anyone on that. I think they've done a fantastic job with the game as a whole, and I really just got to give them props for that. So if you'd like to continue this discussion, I'm going to be live streaming on Twitch as of when this video uploads, so go look in the description. My link to my Twitch is there. Drop me a follow, and I'll be happy to interact with everyone in chat, and I hope to see you in the next video. Like, subscribe, and peace.